Paul Hudrick, our Sixers insider from 97.3 ESPN.com. He will be in the building tonight for Sixers and Hawks. Game number 5, pivotal game 5. I'll even ask Paul, is it a must-win number 5? Can they win 2 in a row? Can they win in Atlanta and then get a game 7? Or do they have to have the game tonight, Paul? What say you?
I don't know about must-win, but they should and they better. I'll put it that way because they're at home. We've talked many times about how good they are at home. Obviously, game 1 didn't go as planned. But in general, this has been a really, really good home team. And it's hard to fathom them losing 2 home games in one series to a team that, quite frankly, to me, they are better than. They are better than the Atlanta Hawks. That hasn't happened through 4 games. They haven't been the better team each night. But I think overall they are the better team. So must win, I don't know about must win because I do think they could theoretically win in Atlanta. They've already won in Atlanta once and then come back home and win a game 7. But to me, I think they should and they better win tonight.
My biggest concern tonight, all right, is, look, I said the Hawks, they have to shoot above their three-point average. Like, whatever they shoot for the year, I think it's like 36. They need to shoot above and beyond that like they did in game 1. They hit 23s. They didn't do that in game 4, and they still won the game. I think they still have another night in them where they're going to bombs away and hit. I mean, they are not shooting the ball well. Do they have that night in them? And if they do, they steal a game like this, that gets a little interesting. But what is your biggest concern in a game like tonight?
It still has to be Joel Embiid for me. I'm still, I think he bounces back. I believe that. But at the same time, I'm not 100% confident that his knee is going to allow him to do that. I think mentally he's going to be fired up. He's going to want to put that game behind him and kind of, we all kind of saw Clint Capella's comments, which from what I understand, Capella didn't mean them in, to be disrespectful or trash talk, but I'm sure Joel Embiid saw them and I'm still sure he had some thoughts about it. So, but that's my concern. I mean, listen, they weren't good in the second half. There's no way to slice it. Offensively, they were a disaster. There was no movement. Doc talked about it, them playing hero ball. But the issue is they've gotten away with that from time to time this season because they have Joel Embiid. He went 0 for 12. How many nights is he going to go 0 for 12 in an entire half? I mean, that's, dating back in the NBA history, it hasn't happened that often to players. I think he's only like the second guy ever on that many field goal attempts to not make a single one. So he is my biggest concern because I think as long as he can give them, he's never going to be 100%. He's not going to be the Joel Embiid we watched all season long. But if he could be the guy he was games 1, 2, and 3, I don't think the Hawks can beat him again.
Yeah, I think the Embiid thing will be obviously something to watch here. Now, I had mentioned, he left game 4 against Washington, and the Sixers looked discombobulated. Then game 5, they didn't have him. They game planned for that. Boom. Do they have a situation where he was not himself, but he was still out there, and they went with him? Now they know maybe his limitations, and they kind of game plan around that, or everything back through Joel tonight?
It's tough. I still think you go through Joel at least to start the game because that's your guy. That's if you're going to go down with your best. Go down with your best player. Go down with your best offense, and your best offense is Joel Embiid being Joel Embiid. So I think to start the game, you still kind of have to ride out with Joel. To your point, though, Mike, I think it's fair that if he's not feeling great or, if it seems that he doesn't have it, yeah, you have to figure some other things out, whether that's using Joel more as maybe a decoy on certain possessions, maybe giving possessions off, whether it's Tobias Harris becoming more of a focal point as a scorer, whether it's Ben Simmons becoming more aggressive as a scorer, whatever it is, or Seth Curry even, getting him in some more actions, getting him in some pick and rolls, some dribble handoffs, whatever it is. I think Doc's going to have a feel for that early on, whether Joel has it or not. Because to me, I know a lot of people were upset. They said, well, why does he keep going through Joel? Well, I kind of get it because it's Joel Embiid. And he's been Superman through the first 3 games of the series playing on a torn meniscus. And, game 3 was the first time where he kind of showed a chink, or excuse me, game 4 was the first time where he showed a chink in the armor. So, I still think you go through him for as long as you can. But if he doesn't look like he has it, Doc's going to have to pivot in a hurry, I think.
By the way, Sixers a 7-point favorite in the game tonight. Moneyline's minus 300, kind of telling that at least Vegas thinks that Joel Embiid could be back or that somebody's ticked off or something different's going to happen. Because that's a pretty big number in this one. That's an interesting point, too, because I had Jimmy Lynam on yesterday and kind of asked him about that. Like, hey, when you have your guy, and even if he's struggling, you don't go away from him. You ride him, and you anticipate, hey, even if he's 0 for 11, I know one's coming. So you stick with Joel Embiid in that spot. Now, tonight, it's going to be interesting to see what Ben Simmons comes out early. Is he the guy who got the message? And you mentioned, hey, he at least acknowledged he need to be more aggressive. We've had these patterns where he acknowledges it, and then he comes out, and he gets those couple layups. So I think that will be a very interesting and telling part of this game is which version of Ben Simmons do we get early?
First of all, Coach Lynam is my guy. I love Coach Lynam. But yeah, with Ben, there is just and it's all players. I feel like kind of have to go through it. I shouldn't say all players. A lot of players have to go through it where, if they're not a natural scorer, and we've discussed so many times how he is just not. That's not his game. He's not a natural scorer. Recognizing that sometimes he wants to do the best play. He wants to make the best play for the team, and sometimes he does not realize or he does not think that the best play for his team is for him to score. And I think he is figuring out that balance of when and when not to. Clearly, game 3, second half, in that third quarter, he took the damn game over. He was phenomenal. And they needed him to be because of everything going on. To your point, Mike, now, knowing that Joel Embiid is struggling with that need, knowing what's going on, knowing how poorly they played in that second half, do we see perhaps a more aggressive version? Perhaps. I thought he was actually the first half. I thought he was pretty darn good. I thought he was pretty aggressive. On both ends of the floor. I thought he was very good. And in the second half, I thought, it's a chicken or the egg thing. Were they bad because he wasn't aggressive, or was he aggressive because they were bad? Because the whole offense stunk. Tobias Harris wasn't very good in the second half. Seth Curry, who had a really good first half, wasn't very good. Nobody offensively played well in the second half. They shot 32% as a team. That's not one guy. That's a team all playing poorly. But, yeah, could Ben Simmons being more aggressive, pushing the pace a little bit more, could that, maybe have helped? Maybe. And they need him to do that in game 5 tonight? Yeah, I think it's very possible that with Joel Embiid's condition, not knowing what you're going to get out of him, it might be better for Ben Simmons to really push the pace and look to be more aggressive and look to score more.
What'd you think of what Doc said yesterday? He said, Ben says he needs to be more aggressive. I can't disagree with that more.
Yeah, I still kind of wonder what the difference is between what Doc Rivers says to us and what Doc Rivers says to Ben Simmons, because it's not the same thing. And also I'm curious what Sam Cassell says behind closed doors, because Sam Cassell is obviously in Ben Simmons' ear, and obviously Ben Simmons listens to Sam Cassell. So I'm not 100% sure that even Doc believes that. Like, I don't know that for a fact, but I just think that Doc's good at saying what guys need to hear. And I think sometimes with Ben is a guy, like, maybe people in Philadelphia don't want to believe this, but I think Ben Simmons is a guy who puts a lot of pressure on himself. And so I think, Doc doesn't want him to press any more than he already does. He already, wants to be great and cares and wants the team to win. So he doesn't want to put in Ben's head, hey, I need to score. He doesn't really want Ben thinking that way, at least to us. So then, you know what I mean? I think it's a different message he's sending, right. I believe, between what he tells us and what he tells Ben.
The people who feel like, why do they baby him so much? Why do they protect him so much? Brett Brown did come out at times and say, I need more. I want him to shoot. That didn't seem to work. I don't know that this is Doc saying I'm taking a different approach, but I don't know. Would they be better served at, being a little tougher on him?
But again, that goes back to what is he telling Ben at practice? Does it do him any good does it do Doc Rivers any good to come to us and say, hey, Ben Simmons stunk last night? Is that going to help Ben Simmons? Probably not. Or even just say, like, oh, I needed Ben Simmons to score. Like, I don't know if those conversations with the media, like, I think for some guys that works. I think some guys get wind of it. It fires them up. It works for them. I'm not sure that Ben Simmons is one of those guys. I think Ben Simmons is a guy that he prefers a coach to be on his butt and to, deliver the personal message to him. I don't think he's because what you talked about, Mike, when I remember Ben Simmons last year, when Brett Brown said, hey, I need him to take a three or whatever, and that became a whole thing.
Tell
from
his
what I
brother,
understand,
tell his
that
agent, tell everybody.
Right. From what I understand, that didn't, that rubbed Ben the wrong way a little bit. And I don't think that's babying him. I think that's just understanding what makes a guy tick, what works for a certain guy. And I don't think that the media bashing works for Ben Simmons. I think what works for Ben Simmons is one-on-one, in his face, telling him what you need from him. I don't think the media thing is the route to go with him.
Okay, so if you had a sit down with Ben Simmons and were carte blanche able to ask him anything, what is your opening question?
What the hell is going on with your free throws? That would be my first question, because I can't make sense of it. I don't know. Yes, clearly he is a poor free throw shooter. He's been a poor free throw shooter since he got into the league. But he's, poor free throw shooter at 60%. Right now, he's below 35%. I mean, I'm just curious, did he change something? Is it in his head? What is it? I mean, we've asked him about it, and he doesn't really. I mean, maybe he doesn't know, because he said, he was asked, "What do you need to do?" He goes, "I need to go to the line. I need to hit him." And you see him warm up.
That's not an answer.
You see him warm up, and he looks fine. I mean, it looks like it has all season long, and yeah.
My first question is, we all watch you shoot three after three after three after three and make them in practices and before games. You don't attempt any. So why are you consistently working on that shot if you have no intention of using it? Now you're wasting getting better at an area you might be utilized. It's almost like, hey, if you're going to keep shooting them, why? Now you're wasting time at getting better at something else.
I would disagree with that in the sense that I think it's building towards him wanting to be. I don't think he is comfortable taking them in a game situation yet, because he doesn't think he's good enough at it. Now, you and I have talked about it. He might be good enough at it, and he's just not taking it. That's a different conversation. But I think in his head, he doesn't think he can hit them consistently enough to help the team. So I think he's practicing them because he wants to get better at it. And yeah, it might not, I shouldn't say might not. It's not going to happen for the rest of this playoff run that he's going to start taking threes. But I think it's him thinking towards the future and him thinking about how he can make his game better. And also I would add this, there hasn't really been a moment for me where I've watched in either of these first two series with him with the ball in the perimeter wide open. And I'm like, why didn't you take that three? You're wide, because even sometimes, I'm not one of these people that's obsessed with him taking a three, but there's certainly been times during the season where I thought, maybe you should have just pulled the trigger there. You had a little bit of an opening. I haven't really seen that through either of these games.
I agree with
so
that,
far,
but I feel like it just where he positions himself in the court doesn't allow that. There are times where he's down on that block and he's in that dunker spot, but if he just kind of stretched himself out to the corner so someone else can take the ball to the basket if he's out of the way, and then they can kick to him. We're not asking you to shoot 8, 9 of them. I mean, Giannis doesn't shoot it well either, but he made 2 out of 4 last night. And, I mean, he doesn't want to.
And they lost.
I know, but I'm saying they want him to shoot it. That's all. Hey, like I said, Blake Griffin's defending him in the paint last night, and he's just bulldozing through him to try to get to the basket. But, that corner three, start there. I don't know. I mean, that's not going to happen. We know that. But I would certainly think that you're going to see a different version, or you would need a different version of him tonight, especially if you don't get Joel Embiid. All right, flip it around. Young didn't shoot well, but I thought he controlled the whole game. He controlled the flow and the pace of that game. He had freaking 18 assists. I mean, he was unbelievable. So, do they have to figure out a new way to defend him?
I would say no. Listen, I mean, the only thing that bothered me defensively about that game is the lack of turnovers. I think Atlanta only turned it over 3 or 4 times or something like that. That's the biggest thing that bothered me. But they shot 36%. If you have an opponent shooting 36%, you need to win that game. There's no reason for it. And I do think a lot of it goes back to what Doc said. I thought John Collins, that was by far, that might have been his best game of the playoffs. He was really active on both ends, and they didn't box him out. They didn't get a body on him. And I just thought he was the hungriest player on the floor. And I think that's the bigger issue. I don't think – and I think, the defensive lapses, the missed shots that the Hawks got, the open looks that they got that they missed, to me it was a product of the Sixers maybe being a little lackadaisical. I don't think it was anything strategic. I don't think it was anything matchup-wise. I think Ben Simmons is the right guy to defend him. I think the schemes they've used, the looks they've given him, the coverages they've given him, I think have been appropriate. I just think it's a matter of they need to be better. They need to be more locked in. They need to be better defensively, and that's all it boils down to for me with Trae Young. I thought they did an excellent job in games 2 and 3, and even game 4 for the yes, he had 18 assists, but again, I don't know if I wouldn't know if I agree with him that he controlled the game, but yeah, I mean he clearly, especially down the stretch, was huge for them down the stretch, but. I wouldn't change anything. I think it's just a matter of them showing a little bit more intensity to him and overall on defense.
You think Trae Young could be the best player on the best team that wins the team that wins a title?
It's hard to say. I mean, he would need to be surrounded by some really good defenders. I would say that first and foremost, because they're going to have to make up for his defense. I think maybe next year it might be a little bit trickier for him, where if the league, frowns upon some of those fouls he draws, when he's leaning away for opponents, those unnatural shots. I'm curious to see how much that would hurt a guy like him who does so well doing that, and it's a big part of his game. But no, I mean, I think because he's so good offensively and he's still so young, I would say he could potentially be the best player on a team that wins a championship for sure.
The version of the Nets that we saw last night, even as well as Durant played, that was one of the most epic performances. The game plan was malpractice. However, he exploited what they did. Can that version of the Nets get to the finals?
It's going to be tough. Harden really looked – I mean, the guy, give him credit, he gutted through it. He clearly did not feel great, short on so many of those jumpers. I mean, and it's a combination – and like, Mike, when you're talking about a hamstring, that's – the only cure is rest. And if you're resting, you're not playing basketball. So it's a combination last night of he's got some rust and he's just dealing with that injury. So credit to him for gutting it out, but he just wasn't James Harden last night at all. Can they rely on Kevin Durant having to score 49 points and dish out 10 assists and Jeff Green hitting 6 or 7 threes? No, I don't think that that's sustainable. And I just, when you look at a team like Phoenix, if they had to go up against Phoenix, if the Nets were to get that far and they had to take on a team like Phoenix looking like they did last night, no, I don't think they could beat the Phoenix Suns looking like that. They need James Harden to be a little bit healthier and better, and I think they're going to need Kyrie Irving, because I don't think they'll have quite enough. As great as Kevin Durant is and has unbelievable as he was last night, asking him to do that, 4 games in a series that's a huge ask.
This East is wide open right now. I mean, if the Sixers don't end up winning this series, it would be an epic failure with what's going on around them. No Kawhi, possibly no Chris Paul. I mean, this NBA is as wide open as I think we've ever remembered it.
100%. There's no Warriors, there's no Spurs. LeBron is out. It's crazy, and it stinks. I mean, quite frankly, part of the reason is injuries. The Lakers clearly couldn't be Anthony Davis gets hurt, then LeBron's still banged up. What's going on now with the Suns? Chris Paul is going to possibly miss the first game or two of the Western Conference Finals. The Jazz, even Donovan Mitchell missed a game to start the playoffs. You see Kawhi now out, and I saw someone point this out too. Like it almost seemed like maybe it's at one point Kawhi and KD might have been on this collision to play each other, which would have been really entertaining, because we haven't really gotten an opportunity to see those two guys at their peaks. Kawhi as the elite defender, Kevin Durant is arguably the greatest scorer to ever play basketball, and we haven't really got the chance to see them kind of go head to head in a playoff series. So it's just we're all getting cheated, quite frankly. It stinks that all these injuries are happening, and we're not getting to see, these teams at full strength. I didn't even mention, obviously, the Sixers with Joel Embiid. Joel Embiid's having this unreal season, and was looking like he was going to just steamroll through the playoffs, and then he tears his meniscus. So it's just one thing after another. And like I said, I think we're, the fans of the game, we're all kind of getting cheated because we're not getting to see the best product possible.
I would imagine the NBA is not hoping for a Jazz Bucks finals here.
No, I would imagine not. And you saw today, the league, LeBron James is not thrilled. And whether you agree with LeBron James or not, we all listen when he speaks. And he was clearly not thrilled the way this season was laid out. And I think he's got some fair points. And now I'm curious, they said that they plan on starting next season normal time. It started around October, but I don't know if that's viable, and I think maybe they should rethink that.
Yeah, I don't see why they just don't do it. They push it back. I don't see why they don't just keep doing this. Keep it where you're starting in December, playing these, take yourself right up to training camp. You can own the whole summer and just switch it to that. You don't have to go as deep as Christmas. Just start sometime in mid-December in there and finish sometime like the first week of late July, early August, something like that.
Right.
So that
And 72 games, I think, is fair too. I mean, I don't think they need to go back to 82, although I think they will for revenue purposes. But I think 72 games is just fine.
Well, you can get around the revenue thing if they don't play 82. I know that takes 5 home games away, I guess, from teams, but having some sort of mid-season tournament that they're talking about,
sure,
that kind of stuff. So there's ways. All right, Paul Hudrick at Paul Hudrick on Twitter. Tonight he will be in the building for Sixers and the Hawks. You can get all the coverage on our website, 973ESPN.com. All right, Paul, we'll talk to you, man.
Sounds good, Mike. Thanks, man.
And he, like all guests, appeared via the Boardwalk Honda hotline.